From the American Experience Storybook, Dolly Madison, 1768 to 1849. I am accordingly ready. I have pressed as many cabinet papers into trunks as may fill one carriage. Our private property must be sacrificed, as it is impossible to procure wagons for its transportation. Extract from a letter written to Dolly Madison's sister, August 23rd, 1814. Dolly, sometimes spelled Dolley, Madison, might have been remembered as simply the First Lady of President James Madison. However, Dolly made a name for herself. Anyone who knew her would say that this Quaker-born lady was sociable, energetic, and tough in a pinch. Sounds like Grams. At age 25, Dolly became a widow when yellow fever took her first husband and one of her two sons. Soon after, Aaron Burr introduced her to James Madison, allegedly at Madison's request, and the two opposites attracted. Though brilliant, James was extremely shy. Dolly's engaging personality played a key role in his popularity as president. She coordinated weekly parties that doubled as opportunities to make political connections. However, as you will read in the story below, Dolly's bravery and determination extended far beyond hostessing. After James Madison died, Dolly spent a year sorting and copying all his papers, which Congress published in 7 volumes. 13 years later, at age 81, Dolly died peacefully at home in Washington. The following excerpt is from the American Hero Stories by Eva March Tappan, chapter, Dolly Madison, Who Guarded the Nation's Treasures. Dolly, asked President Madison of his wife, have you the courage to stay here till I come back tomorrow or next day? I am not afraid of anything, if only you are not harmed and our army succeeds, was her reply. Goodbye then. Take care of yourself, and if anything happens, look out for the cabinet papers, said the president, and rode away to where the militia was gathered. There was good reason for Mrs. Madison to be anxious about her husband and about the success of the Americans. It was now 1814. America and England had been fighting for 2 years. Many people thought that the president had been wrong in resorting to war. Letters had been sent to him which said, if this war does not come to an end soon, you will be poisoned. The city of Washington, too, was in great danger. 4 days earlier, a messenger had ridden up at full speed and said, 50 British ships are anchored off the Potomac. Nearly all the men hurried to the front to try and oppose the enemy. People in Washington were carrying their property away to the country. Still, the little lady at the White House did not run away. She had the public papers to guard, and she would not go. Besides the papers, there was another of the nation's treasures in the house, a fine portrait of George Washington by the famous artist Gilbert Stuart. The son of Washington's stepson came to Mrs. Madison to plan for its safety. Whatever happens, that shall be cared for, she promised him. At last, a note came to her from the president. The enemy are stronger than we heard at first, he said. They may reach the city and destroy it. Be ready to leave at a moment's warning. Most of her friends had already gone, but her faithful servants were with her. Bring me as many trunks as my carriage will hold, she ordered, and then she set to work to fill them with the Declaration of Independence and the other papers that were of value to the nation. Night came, but there was no rest for the lady of the White House. As soon as the sun rose, she was at the window with a spyglass, gazing in every direction and hoping to catch a glimpse of her husband. All she could see was clouds of dust here and there, a group of soldiers wandering about, and little companies of frightened women and children hurrying to the bridge across the Potomac. She began to hear the roar of cannon, and she knew that a battle was going on. Still, the president did not come. There was nothing to do but wait. It was of no use to pack the silver and other valuables, for every wagon had been seized long before, and not one was left even for the wife of the president. At 3 o'clock, 2 men covered with dust galloped up and cried, You must fly, or the house will be burned over your head. I shall wait here for the president, was her reply. A wagon came rumbling along. Some good friends had at last succeeded in getting it for her. She had it filled with the silver and other valuables. Take them to the Bank of Maryland, she ordered. But she said to herself, the Bank of Maryland or the hands of the British, who knows which it will be? 2 or 3 friends came to hurry her away. The British will burn the house, they said. They will take you prisoner. They boast that they will carry the president and his wife to England and make a show of them. They were almost lifting her to the carriage when she said, Not yet. The picture of Washington shall never fall into the hands of the enemy. That must be taken away before I leave the house. This picture was in a heavy frame that was firmly screwed to the wall, and with what tools were at hand, it could not easily be loosened. Get an axe and break the frame, Mrs. Madison bade her servants. Once this was done, the canvas was taken from the stretcher, carefully rolled up, and sent to a safe place. Then the carriage with Mrs. Madison was driven rapidly away. She left the house none too soon, for the British were upon the city. They broke into the White House. They stole what they could carry off with them and set fire to the rest. They fired the Navy Yard, the Treasury Building, the public libraries, and the new Capitol. The British Admiral Cockburn had a special spite against one of Washington's newspapers because it had printed some bitter articles about his savage burning of the defenseless villages along the coast. Burn that office, he commanded, and be sure that all the seas are destroyed, so that the rascals cannot abuse my name any longer. It is said that he jumped down from his horse and kindled the fire with his own hand. At night, a fearful tempest swept over the city. Trees were blown down and the houses were unroofed. When the storm burst, Mrs. Madison was pleading for shelter at a little tavern 16 miles from Washington. She had seen the president, and he had told her to meet him at this place. The house was full of people who had fled from the city. Stay out, they cried. Your husband brought this war, and his wife shall have no shelter in the same house with us. At last, however, they let her in. The president found his way to her later, almost exhausted. But before he had an hour of rest, a man threw open the door, so out of breath that he could only gasp, The British! They know you are here! Fly! Mrs. Madison begged him to go, and finally he yielded and escaped to a little hut in the woods where he could be safe. I will disguise myself and go to some safe place, she promised, and in the first gray of the morning she left the tavern. On the way, she heard the best of news. The British heard that reinforcements were coming, and they have gone to their ships. Then she turned around and drove through the city, but when she came to the bridge over the Potomac, it was afire. An American officer stood by. Will you row me across the river, she begged, for a little boat was moored to the bank. No, he replied. We don't let strange women into the city. In vain, she pleaded, but he was firm. Who knows what you are, he demanded roughly. We have had spies through here. How do I know that the British have sent you to burn what they left? You will not cross the river, that is sure. But I am Mrs. Madison, the wife of your president, she said, and threw off her disguise. Even then, he could hardly be persuaded to row her across, but finally he yielded. Through clouds of smoke, she made her way past heaps of smoldering ruins to the home of her sister, where she awaited the coming of the president. Such were 5 days in the life of a first lady of the land. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Please reach down, click like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below. We'd love to hear from you. I love you guys, and as Tigger says, ta-ta for now.